Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all. Today I'll be talking about integration, the word integration itself, and how it's viewed in society, or many people view this word. Obviously, it's a positive word. It's used in a very positive way. It's got a positive meaning. It should basically means getting people together. When you talk about social integration, bringing all these people from different diverse backgrounds and values and understandings, working together for one society, for the betterment of that society and its development, coming up with a greater outcome for that nation. So it's basically the term itself. It means to preserve what you have, what you believe in, who you are as a person, as an individual, your culture, your practices, but work for that common cause for society. But also, in saying that, I've seen that there are a lot of people out there that don't understand it that way. In fact, they understand it differently or slightly differently, and I find that their understanding is not because of something that they read in a textbook, but it's actually the understanding that they get from their experiences and how they view people's expectations or the broader society's expectations towards them, especially for people who come from minority groups, who are very often sensitive about how they're viewed in society because of their practices that may be different, that may stand out in society. So they would view integration differently, some of them, and they would see that integration would mean for society that they would need to give up what they believe or partially give up their beliefs and their practices and their values, or even some would think, okay, I need to dissolve myself completely and just become someone else who I'm not, in order to please broader society. And so that is something that's commonly out there, the understanding the word integration through what they perceive to be the expectation of a broader society. I think that is not a healthy way to think. I think it can further marginalize people. It can place a person in a very very difficult position in the community, to the point where that person might become a minority within a minority of the community that they live in. And this is something that can lead to extremism, and in some cases it can lead to violent extremism, because they feel they have no place in society and they want to be heard and listened, and whatever grievances they have no other way of addressing that, of being heard. It's obviously a very dark and very misguided path, but it's also a path that I think when we talk about having a multidisciplinary approach to countering violent extremism, I think it needs to be considered. And that's why when you approach someone and you talk to them about integration, who may harness these particular thoughts and understandings and beliefs, it may hold a very negative connotation to them, because to them, their understanding is, you want to integrate me into a society that wants me to give up everything that I have and believe and values and even my faith. So that really needs to be addressed and needs to be explained that this is not what integration is about. It's also important as a Muslim to talk about integration and how Islam views it, and that's why when God Almighty says in the Quran and indeed we created you as nations and tribes, so that you may know one another. So Allah Ta'ala, Allah Almighty, says in the Quran that He created us differently. We're created different tribes and different nations, with different practices and different values, so that we may know one another. Meaning, so that basically it's another word for integration, actually. Knowing one another is understanding each other's differences and working together despite the differences that we have in our practices and our values. And in Australia, I do believe we have common values that we can work towards, and we are working towards as a nation. And these common values is really what makes our nation great, and it's what I think Australia was built upon. The values that really preserve people and preserve people's beliefs, values of understanding one another, values of keeping everyone together and working for the betterment of this nation, and all the societies within the nation. So I think a lot of it is about perception, and a lot of it is about how the word is perceived. It works as a two-way street, basically. So it needs to be addressed in different ways, but at the same time, it's something that I would say it would be good for us to have a very to be specific when we talk about it, because knowing that there are people out there that think of the word differently or understand it differently, it's also good to talk about, not only just mention the word integration and to say that we have to integrate as a society, but also talk about what that word means, what it means to integrate as a society, and really outline and define that word with all its details. I think that's very, very important, especially when dealing with people who may have developed some extreme thinking, who may feel marginalized from society. So what it means to be integrated, bringing them closer and back into society in order to counter these thoughts, and bring them back to that straight path as we know it. So I hope that just a little bit from me. So thank you for listening, thank you for your time, and Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you.